and he needs no introduction, but I'm going to just introduce him real briefly. David focuses his energy on finding good people who are doing good work and then helping them win. And you're all doing great work. And so he's here today to give us some tips on marketing. He owns Better Story Marketing and Everyday Design. And he and I actually just recently put together the workshop, the Goal Crush Your Goal workshop. And you all have access to it. And so without further ado, David, can you come on board?
I'm really excited to get to join y'all. And I'm going to try and do this as kind of an interactive time. So I would love for people to come off mute, and because I'll be asking questions and we'll kind of dialogue through. But really, like EC shared, of how do we figure out what's the right marketing actions to take? How do we figure out what are the things that we need to grow our businesses? So here's my questions that I want to start with, as hopefully this loads. There we go. Is, do you ever get cold pitched different marketing services? Anybody get these? You know, you get them as your LinkedIn messages, your Instagram DMs, maybe people fill out the nice little form on your website with, and maybe, let's see, do some of these things here, do these sound familiar? It's like, oh, I run an Instagram growth service, or let me help you use Facebook ads to get all these new leads, or, you know, all these different ones. I had a bookkeeper come up to me last month at a networking thing. And she said, okay, so someone just sent me a message, told me that I really need to like work on my SEO, and they want $700 a month, and it's a 2-year contract, but I may not see, you know, there's no results guaranteed for until the 6 months. And I was like, block that. Don't respond. But you know, y'all are nodding because you get these too. You know, you'll get those ones, those legion, like, hey, we have this just bucket of people who want to buy from you that we want to give you. So yeah, so we all get these. And really the question is like, how do you know which marketing tactics to choose? Like, that's kind of the like, I don't know, like, these are coming at me. Do I need one? How do I even know what I need? And if I do, which one do I pick? Can this person deliver? I was just on a tense phone call with somebody last week where they asked me to kind of come in and sit in as the person who was selling them services was giving them an update. And I just kind of was asking some more direct questions, and the person was skirting around and deflecting and giving, and I was like, and afterwards I was like, yeah, they're really not doing anything. Like, and it's just hard, but that happens sadly so much. And really, like, you know, I appreciate, you see, even you bringing up the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I think about beginning with the end in mind, because this is a really common question. Like, oh, which tactics do I need? Like, people come up and ask me this all the time. And it's like, well, it depends. Like, there's not a one size fits all answer. Like, I couldn't just give an answer to all of you. You each have different businesses. Your businesses are at different points. You have different ideal customers. And so really there's a what job this is what I would propose is maybe a better question, is what job do you need marketing to do for your business in order for it to grow? And so what we're going to kind of work through here over the next couple minutes here is a couple of questions. So if you have a piece of paper, I would encourage you to take it and divide it into like 6 little sections, kind of like this. We're going to take them kind of one at a time. So this is where I would love for, does anyone want to be a guinea pig for this and just go through it? Do I have any volunteers of someone who wants to give? All right, Chris, perfect. All right, I saw that hand. So, okay, so we're going to go for this. Chris, tell me, what do you do? What is your...
Organizing. So we do home organizing, also commercial organizing.
Okay, so home and commercial organizing. That is super fun. Okay, and spelling is in public is my least... favorite thing, but you know, it's good for the humility. Okay, so tell me, Chris, who is your ideal customer? Like, if you could have one person just making your phone ring over and over, who is that person?
I would say high performing professionals.
Okay. And then, like, why are they calling you?
Because they enjoy having organized spaces, but they don't have the time, or it doesn't make sense for them to give to do it themselves. Their time is more valuable.
Mm-hmm. So their goal is they want those organized spaces, but their problem is time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, totally. Okay, so we have these are your ideal customers. So again, like this is, this obviously is pretty fundamental, but I encourage you to come back to this question because I work with people who've owned businesses for a long time, and you know how it is as a business owner. You want to find customers, and sometimes it's like, yeah, I want to serve this person. And then this person comes along, they're like, hey, can you do this other thing? And it's like, well, I mean, if you pay me for it, sure. And you start, it's easy to drift. And I was on a call with a guy just the other day who does custom cabinets, and we were talking about different clients, and he was talking about the high-end DIYers. And really, as we talked through it, he's like, yeah, I just really don't like, he's like, they're a ton of time, they almost never buy. And it's like, well, then let's take them out of the bucket, but it's an easy drift. And so even as you think through, there's probably, if we were sitting down and doing this as a longer conversation, we would kind of dig in more like, okay, tell me more about these professionals. Like, who are they? Is there certain, income bracket? Do they have certain type? Is there kind of a typical prototype or persona that we'd go after? But okay, let's keep rolling though, for the sake of time. Is what job do you do for these high performing people?
What job do I do? We create space in their home.
Uh-huh.
And we create customized organizing solutions based on their goals that are easy to maintain.
So I love that. What's the thing you tend to sell them then? Is it a one-off product? Like it's like, hey, we're going to come in and fix it and then it's yours again? Or do you kind of like, is it like a subscription type of thing? Or what do you want to sell them? Really is what I want to get to here. Is like, what's your ideal job? Like if you could have these people keep calling you and keep asking you for what?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense to have a subscription or a membership. But typically if that system is set,
they don't need it.
They can maintain it. Now, there are certain clients that have, let's say, ADHD, and they really do benefit from us coming in once a month.
Yeah. So maybe like your ideal job would be, let's do a reboot plus like kind of a monthly cleanup.
Yeah.
Something like that. That if you're like, hey, if I could just keep selling these, business would be good. I'd be doing, and a part of this too is when you think about your ideal job, this is like, what do you like to do for people?
Mm-hmm.
Like people ask me all the time to like manage your social media. And I'm like, I just don't like doing it. So it's like, that's not in my ideal job space. It might be a need for my ideal client. So I find a referral partner that I can point those people to, but it's not in the job it's not one of my superpowers, in a sense. And so you want to think about kind of what's your superpower that you do super well and you just love doing. Does this, for you, Chris, does this kind of live in that space for you?
I mean, for us, like what I know I don't like is working with a super sentimental person that cannot make a decision.
Okay.
Because it just, there's a lot of money involved in that. I mean, it's great for me, but it's very taxing on my energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like working with people that can make a decisive decision, even if, maybe there's one or two things where they get stuck on and we work through that. Like I love working through that with people, but being able to go in and declutter any space and being efficient about that, that results so much in the space. So what it also does is relieve like the anxiety and overwhelm quickly in the home because they're really stressed out about clutter.
Oh, totally.
And so if we can get in there and make quick decisions, And then from there, we get to set up the systems, and then going back to maintain those systems. If someone doesn't want to maintain them, it's so easy for us. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that is. We're going to keep moving just for sake of time through the chart here. What's kind of what it would be an average? Well, here, let's do it without the monthly, because I know then that gets kind of complicated in there. But like for a reboot in someone's home, what is your average revenue for something like that?
It's about, if we're doing multiple spaces, the average would probably be about 2,000.
Okay, so we got 2K. Okay, so then we're going to move over and go. And this, I probably should have qualified this earlier that we were going to get into numbers. Okay. So here we are. So what are your target numbers? So like when you think about like, okay, what revenue do I need to hit each month to feel good? Like, hey, the business is covering cost of goods. We're not going to dig too much in this. So just kind of give me the big, like, what's the revenue goal?
For my enough goal, like where everything is just working, it's going to be between 7,000 and 8,000.
Okay, so let's go with 8 because that makes the math easier. Okay, and hey, that extra 1,000, that's excellent. So, okay, so now what is the thing that happens right before someone hires you? Like, do you do like a home visit? Do you do a workshop? Kind of what's the moment right before that magical moment where they're like, okay, I think, like, where they're deciding, and what happens in your process?
It's an in-home consultation.
Okay, in-home. Okay, so then how many, like when you do an in-home consultation, how many of those tend to go, yeah, I'm in? Like at that point, what's converting there?
It's a great question. Last year, I would say we were at about 60 to 70%.
Okay.
This year, like especially in April, I had so many people ghost me, and I'm like, what is happening?
Even after you did the visit, they were
yeah,
ghosting.
And they were all in, and I sent the proposal, and then it was like nothing.
Interesting. Okay. So is it probably more like 50, or is it like if you took the average of like this spring, let's even just say like
the spring I would say I didn't get 4 of the jobs, but I got all the rest. So probably like I don't know, like an 80%.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll keep it at 67. That's great. And this is actually at that point in the journey, because they've begun to say yes. They've begun to raise their hand and go, yes, I have this problem. Yes, Chris, I want someone like you to come help me. And so, so a high conversion rate is typical here. So, okay, so let's actually say it's, I just want the math to be easy here.
You can do 50, that's fine.
Okay, let's do 50, yeah. So if it's 50, so we need, how many do we need? We need, if you need 4 to get to this 8K, then that means you basically need to walk into 8 homes a month, right? I'm doing this math right. Yes. Okay. So you need 8 homes a month. How does that number kind of land on you even right now as we're talking through it? Does that feel like, oh man, that's a lot? Or you're like, yeah, that's about right?
I think that's about right, and that's just the average. So, I mean, we could land another product or service that we do where it's like unpacking for someone after they move. Like that's a much bigger project. So
totally. No, that's a good, it's such a, even as you talk, like each of these things, I can like having someone who moves and being someone who has 4 children, all these things, I'm just like, like I can feel it, and which is good because like it's like thinking through like how do you communicate this, and that's this is what I love doing with people, is helping them craft the words where someone is hearing what you do and goes, I want that for Christmas, like which actually would be kind of a fun way to like promote your services, is to like if someone if you had like a smaller like $500 version that someone could give for Christmas to another person, that would be pretty cool. Okay, so
David, one quick question. I'm wanting to ensure that everybody's following along with this as well. and just wanted to just check in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is everybody following along? Okay, wonderful. Great.
Yeah, that's a great check-in, Easy. Thank you.
Mhm.
So really, when we come down to it at the end, is it's like, okay, what marketing you need. And so this is what I'll typically do in what I call a focus session, where we'll sit down and, because it's like, as a business owner, it's like running your business, you have so many hats, and even when you decide to put on the marketing hat, it's still like running through a maze, like we talked about before. It's all these different things. And even though we walk through this, and this is kind of, it's foundational, but when you're wearing all those other 19 hats, this gets lost in there, and it's really hard. And so what I try to do here is just bring this focus, and hopefully each of y'all are kind of like you asked, everyone's following along, and you're filling in your own numbers as we go through here. Because while there's still a question to answer here at the end, hopefully it's a much more focused question than like, which of these things do I need? It's like, oh, well, how do I get in 8 homes a month? And so then we would really look at like, okay, do you have an email list, of people that you're regularly sending updates about home organization or business organization that you could be pinging or incentivizing to give you referrals? Like if you're doing regular updates, is there some sort of workshop you could do, or that teaches people how to do this, that you could be invited into a space? Is there kind of a lead product? And what I mean by a lead product is kind of something, like I said before, like a $500, something that maybe you're like, yeah, this isn't going to be my bread and butter. I'm not gonna lose money on it, but it's something that's easier for someone to say yes to, and they get to practice paying you and experiencing value from you. Does that make sense? And so for me and my business, I do this as a brand foundation that gives you like a messaging guide and a marketing playbook, and it lets someone, and at that point really they could take it and go off and hire someone else or DIY it, or hopefully, they ask me to help them with some of those things. But at that point, it's like, hey, let's practice me giving you value and you paying a reasonable amount for that. And it does, it's kind of like, when you think about when people are getting jobs out of college and they do an internship, and it's good for both people to kind of try it out. In a way, your lead product kind of fits that same sort of deal. Another area would be like a lead generator. Do you have a room by room organization worksheet that someone could download? And then maybe, when you add this with like some sort of sales sequence that helps them think about, because even something you mentioned, how do they value their time? Because they're walking around the house, and how do they value their like energy and like the stress that's seeing piles around the house, all the little things that say I'm a to-do, come do this, you forgot last weekend, you didn't do this on Saturday, like all these things that are around them that like drain and pull energy out. So that's a kind of a paradigm shifting, is like, hey, don't see your house as clean or dirty. See it as, is it giving life or is it taking away life? And think about that piece in your home as an investment. Like, how much is that worth? And then think about your value of time, their value, if they're a high performing person who's like, yeah, my time is worth more than what it would take me to do this. And it's just going to get messy again because I don't know how to really organize. So like, that's where like that sales sequence, you're cultivating a mindset where they go, oh yeah, this just totally makes sense. I'm in, and so that's where, you can start to think through some of these things. I know we're pretty much here at time. So I'm going to pause. But hopefully this was a helpful session to kind of work you through. If any of y'all want to like walk through this again, I do offer a free focus session here. I'll drop the link in here. So it's a 30-minute, basically kind of doing this same sort of thing. If any of y'all want to do this. So I appreciate, Chris, you jumping in there and being willing to be the guinea pig for the day. But yeah, Issy, do we have time for questions? Or I know you said you have a bunch of things that you're trying to do.
Great. So let's give maybe 2 questions out there. So anyone have any question?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have a question.
Go
sorry,
Kelly.
Go for it.
So when you're looking at your ideal client, is there, I know it's industry kind of specific, but are there certain markers or classification, that you can kind of research? Does that make sense? Or is it just based on your previous clients, or, how do you know if there's an ideal client that you've never experienced yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. An ideal client. I mean, some of it is like usually when I'm working through that with somebody, we do kind of talk through if they've been in business for a while, like, yeah, who are the people that you have experienced? You're like, oh, I want more of those. Or, sometimes it is like, yeah, I've been serving this audience. I don't know if it's quite right. I have a hunch that this other group is out there. And so sometimes that can be done via research. Sometimes that's even doing some like figuring out like, hey, where do those people ask their questions? Or where do they gather? Do I know anybody who knows them? And can I validate this by maybe offering a free or discounted service to go, hey, I'm expanding my product line for people like this. Does anybody know anyone like this? I'd love to like offer them like some high value, low cost version of this to kind of see, so sometimes you can test it through your network. Sometimes you can test it online. But a lot of times as we talk through like, what's your business model and really think through like, hey, who do you most want to help, and then defining them, you have all the kind of the different demographic and psychographic data of like, what's their average income or revenue, what is their, just a ton of things that you can do in there. But what's probably most important, I find, is figuring out what is their aspirational goal. So like, going back to Chris, your example, it's someone who wants like their house to work. Like they're a high performing person. They want a high performing house and home and space, and it's like, I want to be able to walk in and it be in order, and so that's and then defining like, what's that ideal person's like what keeps them from their aspiration. And then how they're an ideal person is there's someone you want to work with and you love removing that obstacle, whatever keeps them from that aspiration, that obstacle. If you're like, ooh, I love helping people get rid of that obstacle, then they're probably an ideal client for you, if that makes sense. And some of that in there too is like, can they pay what you need them to pay? Like for Chris, she might have a lot of people who like, yeah, but I only have like $200. And she's like, okay, I can't help. Like, I need someone who is able to spend $2,000 on this. And so like, that's where you want to think through that part as well as can they pay? And sometimes there's some ways to shift your product mix to mitigate that. But yeah, there's a bunch of different things in there.
Just how can we create a worksheet specific for our business?
Like this particular worksheet, like how can you customize it to your
worksheet to for them to go in and fill out, like you were talking about a worksheet to get them engaged in your
something that operates kind of like a lead generator that an ideal customer can download.
Yes.
Okay, who's going to try and do it on their own? What's the thing that kind of helps them do that? And then they go, actually, I kind of want to just hire you. That's a good option for those. You can also think about like the customer journey of when they're becoming aware of their problem, like, why is my house so messy? Like, what's going on? It's like, oh, I don't have systems. Well, how do I, so that's in the awareness. I'm trying to name my problem. And I learned, oh, my problem is I don't have good systems and I don't have a space for everything. So everything can't be in its own place. So then it's like, oh, I need, so then you get into consideration. It's like, well, how do I do systems? Okay, well, here's 5 ways to keep your kitchen clean, or to keep clutter off the counter, and it's like, ooh, I mean, I think we would all probably download that, that's in like, I'm considering different solutions. And then it's like when they get into like decide like, well, what am I actually going to do? Then it's like the life-changing benefits, of having someone put your home in order in a sustainable way or something. I don't know. That's a long kind of convoluted title, but something along those lines that really hits on that. So you think about from awareness to where they're naming their problem, to consideration where they're trying to pick from options, to decisions where they're choosing one of those options. And so if you think about that and what are the questions they ask, and then you kind of put yourself in their shoes and go, well, what would my ideal customer click on and trade their email and phone number for, which people value at about $35, like about 15 for an email and about 20 for your phone number. And so like you want to kind of think of it in that level of value, that you're giving that much because they're giving you their information. So, but yeah.
Thank you, David. Fantastic. It was great to have you here. Appreciate you. I'm sure it was a ton of value for the family here. And yep. And so here we say thank you, and we hope to see you again sometime soon. Come back to visit us.
Perfect. Would love to. Thank y'all. So fun. Thank you for letting me join you this morning.
Absolutely.
Bye.
And bye-bye. Thank you.